We're going to take a trip to Jamaica today. Now I'm going to read a passage of scripture in Acts chapter 1 verse 8. It says this, and he said to them, "It is not for you to know the times of the seasons of the Father, but His will, but you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, and in Judea, and Samaria, and to the uttermost parts of the world." And that's the exciting thing about going to the uttermost parts of the world. This congregation 3 or 4 years ago was giving us some of funds that was either going to go to the individual family that says we want you either put it into whatever you want to do, whether it's the billboard ministry or whether it's the Jamaica mission or whether it's in your building fund. And so we need to have a headquarters to do mission work and to do evangelism, because our goal here as far as a church was to reach the county, Polk County, for Jesus Christ, and to reestablish 4 churches in the county, or encourage that Mulberry, Haines City, North Lakeland, and Polytechnic campus ministry. And that was a vision we shared with 8 preachers 4 years ago. And some have gone to other areas, and some have got. Last word heard, even Alan Detweiler is going to be the new preacher at Havendale Church. Roy's going on in North Carolina. So that's what's up and coming. So bring you up to speed, and he'll encourage better attendance at the men's fellowships, Glenn, and better attendance at the ladies' fellowship, Sylvia. So this sometimes takes. It'll happen. But in this as far as in ministry, the Jamaica ministry is just one mission that we support. There's, of the 12 months of mission giving, I'm thinking 2 months goes for Jamaica and 10 months goes for other ministries, from Geely and campus ministry in Gainesville. That's Gator Country, Dan Parker. In camp, we've had 2 offerings for camp. We do MASA, Mission Aviation Support Association. My wife's over transportation now. She's the official. And I know Morgan's been donated his car. He didn't let anybody know I donated my car for the pilots, but that's something else. And we support a Bible translation and a translator in Guinea, West Africa, Samantha Merrow. And we support Glenn Koppel's ministry as he sends Walking with Jesus into Pakistan and Africa and into Asia and the uttermost parts of the world. And there's hundreds of students and churches that have received his materials in those countries, and that's one of the missions we do support on an annual basis. But we're going to concentrate on Jamaica Bible Seminary. We've served that seminary for 19 years, which is probably a record for some. Our original goal was to serve 5 years and see how it would go. We're going to break down our Jamaica mission into basically 5 categories. We call this area Montego Bay. This is Baptizing Bay. This is the facility, and up in this is where the seminary uses the old parsonage. It's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath parsonage that's got offices and staff rooms and storage for medical equipment. And right now in this facility, we've got 27 people sleeping up here in the computer room. And in this particular room here, the men's dorm, we had about 5 men, and I think they had about 12 or 14 women in the girls' dorm. And I think Johnny and his wife, they took the master bedroom, and another couple took the other bedroom. We set up, and we've had over, I'm going to say, 80 one-week seminars in the last 19 years, in which we will instruct men and women in Scripture to establish them in the Word of God. And of the work teams we've had, I'm thinking over 700 people have gone there for short-term mission work. Dan, you've been there 5 times or 4 times?
I think 4 or 5, I'm not sure.
Okay, Dan Parker's been there about 4 or 5 times. And Dan Ely, you've been there how many times?
Probably
4.
4 times. And Liz, you've been there about 5 or 6?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
at least.
And my wife's been there probably 70 or 80 trips, which is incredible. This is the board where our college board meets with the church board to project ahead. There on the island, we're known as Jamaica Bible Seminary Limited. It's like incorporated. And here in the United States, we're Jamaica Christian Services USA Incorporated. There's a new incorporation. We just recently de-incorporated through our new CPA, Leon Hansen. This is a fellow by the name of Mike Kennedy. He's a bus driver. He pastors a congregation on the West Coast. He teaches in a Bible Institute, and he brings down teams of 8 and 10 and 12 and 17 and 14 and 13. He goes down there a month at a time, and he'll be co-teaching with us. Dan's co-taught with him, and he'll be co-teaching with us here in a couple weeks. But Mike usually does our archaeology and Bible background courses. And he does such a good job of it that I sit in his class and I bring his stuff here and I give it to you. He's my source, he's my resource, and if I've been through the class, I can share the class. This is the college classroom, which is actually a living room, dining room. It's smaller than this auditorium, but what's this now? Oh yeah, it's co-ed. But around the perimeter, we had some set up our library, which is round bookshelves around the perimeter of the room. And it took Sister Folk and Dorothy Yunson, who is from Ghana, Africa. She is an American missionary lady that was our librarian in Ghana. And she set up, and it was a big project of work in 4,000 books or so. She had the card catalog, and to go through all this, it took her 3-4 people, and she was down there 4 or 5 times in 2 different campuses getting this all done. She finally had this labor of love completed. These are some of her students, and Primrose was our first lady to graduate from the seminary. She got her diploma in Bible and teaching, and she's an active leader in the Top Hill congregation where Clevin Dixon and Nathan are. This is a group of, notice this good guy here? Here's among the group, but Roger Scott's the senior, and some were staff and some were students here at the seminary. Now this fellow is Ron Steer. Ron is a goat herder. And he says he saw through Scripture when he read about Abraham, and he read about Jesus being, the lamb, the shepherd, the good shepherd. He looked at Abraham and Isaac and Joseph and the various ones. So he's a herder of goats. He'd rather do goats than chicken because he can sell goats for more money than he can sell chicken for. So he's a good businessman. And this kid is sharp. He's got a deep baritone voice, like who's that guy that used to sing with Billy Graham? Had that booming George Beverly Shea. He's got a George Beverly Shea kind of a voice, and a lot of wisdom for a young man. This was Smith, another fellow from the Briarfield congregation. Now these 2 guys were teaching. This gentleman and this gentleman just met was Mike. And that week, I think Dan was teaching the book of Daniel, and he taught Jeremiah. And as we're coming home on the plane, I said, Dan, how long did you spend preparing your class? He said, probably about a year. I said, you spent it for a year and you only in 1 week it's over with. I said, would you consider coming to Northside Christian Church and doing the adult Sunday school class and taking that year worth of prep and that 1 week's worth of seminar and share it with us? And he's done it again and again and again and again. He's become a welcome fixture. This is a good-looking guy. You like the shirt? We got matching shirt and dress. This is the men's dormitory. Ron was too long for some of those bunks, so he brought in a cot bed that was a little bit longer for him. He's 6'2", and these bunks are like 6-foot bunks. So we had to get a longer bed, but we have three bunk beds, and then we put another one on the other corner. So we'll sleep 6 and 7 guys when we have to in this room. This is Tracy Marks. He's a professor and also the president of the Bible College in Kentucky, Louisville, and Louisville Christian University. This is when Hurricane Sandy came blowing through, and it kicked up its heels, and we had to shove our desks over there under the window because the power was out for 2 days. This fellow's name is Oral Rogers Scott, Winston's half-brother. And he had a mama praying for him back in his wayward days, and he was baptized 3 or 4 years ago, and he's been in college and in and out. But He's a neat guy. This is our normal lunchtime or breakfast time. Here we're at one of the conventions. When we go to convention, you notice a lot of times old George Kimball will be with us. He became part of our setup grip team. And we just got back from Cincinnati, Ohio, and this is the normal display we'll set up, where we'll have the seminary on one side, we'll have the school on the other side, and what's going on current with the graduates and what's going on. And we'll have these rubber pad down here to take the paint. You know, you're standing on concrete for 2, 3, 4 days, don't work, so we got these old cushions. And when we're flying, we couldn't bring all that stuff. And but this is our setup in here. This is, I think this is Dorothy Yunson right here, and Roland Howard from Florida Christian College, and some of Dorothy's helpers. I think this is Folk, and her husband just became one of the chief finance advisors there at the Johnson University. And so we've had some quality people in this particular team. And it's a crowded group. We got to push the tables in and push them out when we're having class. This is Roland. He picked up patois right away. I mean, he is a natural. And we asked Roland. Roland's serving right now on our board as one of our board members. These are our librarians. The older lady in the middle, of course, is Dorothy, and this is Sister Folk and another lady that joined her. So this was a couple of years ago that they were setting up, and this was Dorothy giving the ladies some instruction, had her own library. This was a young guy that was 12 years old and decided to play a game of chess, and I am a chess champion. I played the kid first game, and guess who won? He did. He's beat me about 4 times, and I beat him about 20 times, but he's a pretty good chess player. After he beat me, Dan, no mercy. No mercy. You got to earn it now.
Now,
But,
is he the young man that the lady that cooked for us?
Yeah, that's Joyce took him in. His daddy came back on the island. He left Joyce and went to be with his daddy. And he dropped out of school and who knows what. You know, it's kind of one of those things when you're 13, 14 years old, you feel your Wheaties. And Mama threw him away. He was on the streets, and Joyce took him in, and she had him for 9 years. And the young boy was, I had him down in, I had a PhD teaching elocution, and he says, I can't give a grade, that kid's only 12 years old. I said, well, don't give him a grade then. And then I called the guy back up, I says, congratulations, the young 12-year-old just won Preacher Boy Award at youth camp, you know, as the best preacher in camp, and he's working with us on there. But right now he needs prayer. His name is Suku. Suku is his S-U-K-O-O. He's part Jamaican, part Indian.
How old is he now, Richard?
Probably 14, but he's not where he ought to be. I don't know. He's when he was with Joyce, he was in church with his daddy, but sometimes your blood is thicker than. This was the class of that particular group. We have day session. We began night session in Mandeville campus and this campus, and it was where we run Monday through Thursday, 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock classes. And we just began that here in the last years when we began the English program. So the morning is 4 hours of academics, the afternoon's 2.5 hours of English, and the evening's 2 hours of Bible elective. This was the fellow that has got his PhD. He's a Disciples of Christ preacher, conservative Disciples of Christ preacher that was teaching at Kentucky Christian College. And he was looking for, Morty, a conservative Disciples of Christ church in Missouri. And you know what I told him? Good luck.
Good luck.
There ain't any such thing, but good luck. You know, it just be what it be. This is her cook, Joyce, and Cassandra. And there's one thing, even though Joyce is our preferred teacher or cook, it's sometimes hard to keep Sandy out of the kitchen. Joyce, you go on home this evening. I'll go ahead and clean up after supper. You know, Joyce will get there at 6 a.m. in the morning and have breakfast on by the time 7:30. We'll have breakfast and start class at 8:30 to 12:30, and then we'll have lunch 12:30 to 1:30, and then we'll have class from 12:30 to 4, and then we'll have supper at 5 and 6, and night class at 7 to 9, and then close off about Friday noon and head on back to the airport or head back to Montego Bay and catch your plane out next morning. This is part of our class. Lieutenant Vincent Hall was a congregational preacher that began Churches of Christ in Jamaica. In his lifetime, he worked in 1937 to, I think he died in 1945 is when he passed away. And what was that? 82 to 45, 1882 to 1945. They called him the Alexander Campbell of Jamaica. And a good-looking guy, but he died at 62 years of age. Was in World War I, Cambrai offensive, in the first time they had Fort tanks in the trenches of France, and became lieutenant. And also became an Indiana Jones, and he was the big cook on the Carter expedition that found King Tut's tomb. He was a Crocodile Dundee, like a Steve Irwin in Australia. He knew about the Aborigines. He was a naturalist, lecturer, and he came to the United States and he preached half a year before Carter got back to the States on a peek into Tut's tomb. And even though he died a short life, he's got an unmarked grave. We went to find his grave. This is the church he preached at. We get another. This was the first congregational church. And there's about 50 or 75 people meeting in this building. And I went there a couple years ago asking, did you know anything about C. Vincent Hall? They never heard of the man. And but others, the congregational church, one was on the burial committee that buried the man. But this was a cemetery. We tried to find out where C. Vincent Hall was buried. This is Ronnie, and this is the head of the cemetery division over the island of Jamaica. And by happenstance, we ran into him. And he says, well, this crypt, made out of these kind of red brick, would be in the 1945, 1950s era. And says this could be Vincent's grave. But most of the headstones have been snapped off. All these marble stones have been snapped off. And people take the marble and make crafts out of them at the craft market. So I thought with this little cemetery of 30, 40 people, I'd find his grave, and I smiled until I found all those snapped tombstones were missing. And so they're unmarked graves, most of the cemetery. If they weren't concreted in, they were gone. So we've got an unknown soldier somewhere buried out here. This is back in the Mandeville campus. Dan was here. We were here for 4 years. The boys playing dominoes. They love that game and slap it down and make a lot of noise. This is a fellow by the name of Kevin Short. He's not short. He's about 6'3", big tall guy. And then we were at his church in, I think it's Ohio, Indiana, and we did a faith promise or a mission talk. This is Jack Lupp, one of the former professors at Florida Christian College. We even had his kids come and work with us on some of the projects and build the church schools and all on the island. This was the process of moving out of the Mandeville campus, moving to the Mineral Heights campus, 45 minutes farther south. The building we're using temporarily, and the parsonage using temporarily, but the preacher's wife died, and he and his new wife and 7 kids, including his sister, 5, 6 kids and the sister. We had to displace 9 people every time we had a week of class. Now for 8 classes, 2 years at work, year 3 it was getting kind of, it just didn't work out. So we just, the Mineral Heights facility opened up. This is some of the crew here. But this was at that Mandeville campus while we're there, and then finally we moved it over to the Mineral Heights campus. This was a marriage retreat, and I used the wrong word. It says the Jamaica Bible Seminary is going to sponsor preacher retreat. And when you use the word sponsor, that means you pay for it. I didn't mean to pay for it. It's a Dutch treat, you know. There's no way I can afford room and board at a resort, at a hotel at the Gloriana for 21 people. And yeah, Brother Rich is going to pay the bill. No, we'll sponsor. We paid for the room. We made the arrangements and coordinated the meals. And we had 21 in this particular group. I guess you know who this is, Glenn and Sylvia. And then we had some other, Tony Poncetti was the one hitting it up. Tony was the preacher here at he was one of the elders at the Grace Fellowship Church. And we had him as Dr. Poncetti. He's now going to the Baptist Church in Bartow, the church on Church Street. He's serving there as one of the leaders at the Baptist church there. But Dan, I guess we may not be politically correct, but he came and did our marriage retreat. And what do these guys know about? Interesting thing caught me with Tony is their church practices communion every Sunday. And the interesting thing is their understanding of baptism, Dan, they says, if a person is not willing to be baptized immediately or soon after they make a profession of faith, they wonder if they have a saving faith. You know, that's interesting. They baptize immediately the same day. You know, it's just one of those situations. But and if a person refuses to be baptized, then they question whether the person had a saving faith. This is Gloria. She was beaten by her husband, and she took care of him after she divorced him. She later on took care of him on his deathbed, and he tried to kill her more times than one. But she ended up working as a cleaning maid in a hotel, and now she owned her own because some wealthy guy says, I believe in you. Let's see what goes with it. And she built there. Here we're over there in Montego Bay, the couples after the week of retreat.
Lynn, you should have shared your hat with him.
Do you think I needed it? Yeah, probably. Yeah, I usually need my hat. Well, that's the college. Now we're going into construction. This is the construction of the churches and the schools. This is David Barber, Burton Barber, that did the Revelation chart over here. This is his nephew, and he's a construction guy. And then I asked him to teach in the college, and he says, well, I did finish college. I was 2 or 3 credit hours short to get my bachelor's degree. And he thought you have to have at least your master's to teach in Jamaica Christian College. Yeah, that's nice if you do. It's nice if you have your PhD. It's nice if you're president of a Bible college. We've had 7 presidents of 7 Bible colleges, accredited universities, teach in the college. But this guy dropped out of Bible college. He's 3 credits short, but most of our guys are reading on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th level of English level. And so I wasn't worried about him not knowing more than his students. I said, you come and share. And later on he headed up some of our construction teams. And this is in Tree. And these are some of the water storage tanks. And these steps, I repaired these steps and rebuilt these things. And it was supposed to be a temporary fix. But these boards were not even fastened down, or they're fastened down with one screw on one side, nothing on the other. And there's just an accident that happened. I built this thing to last for 1 year. They use it for 3 or 4 years until they replace with concrete. So whenever you think something's going to go in temporary, sometimes it's more than. And then this room ended up to be the future library that was built and ready to put in the shelves and bring in the books this week. This is the Tree Church and how they expanded it. This is Dan Smith. I just had supper with Dan Friday evening. And he's our vice president of the college. He pastors the Tumwa Church, congregation of about 140 people. He oversees 4 of the mission preachers on the island. And this is Ronnie Craig, my right arm. He's dean of students. And this is Winston. This is another Winston. This is one of the deacons there at the congregation. Now this was the construction of the upstairs fellowship hall. George Kimball was out here at this work site in Alan Detweiler some time back, and then our team ended up finishing up some of the work that even old George began. You know this young guy? Yeah, that's not Will. Yes, that's the big tall guy, doesn't need a ladder. That's Andrew, shoveling concrete. This is a couple years back. And this is the library. This building is now complete. It's been rendered whenever they render. This is called rendering, the windows and the rendering. And this was the rough end. And this is all cement. And then down here is into the kitchen. And Sandra's down in this little kitchen down here. And the refrigerator's up here, and she always had to run down the basement stairs to get stuff. Now the refrigerator back before finally moved it and built in a kitchen in there, so we finally have a kitchen and shelves.
Building codes over there.
Well, they do or they don't. Anybody know who this young lady is? Yeah. That's Maddie, yes. That was her. She was enjoying the kids and entertaining the kids, because Maddie's with us for several semesters from the college. This is the downstairs. And this is Jonah, Dan and Jonah. This is Maddie. This is Andrew with his big grin. And this gal, she's a registered nurse from Ottumwa, Iowa. You know what she got for Christmas 2 years ago, Steve?
Stethoscope.
An AK-47 pink.
Really?
I am serious. This lady packs heat in a big way. AK-47 is like an Uzi. It's like an Uzi on steroids. But she had a pink AK-47, and that's what her husband bought her
You
for.
mean pink in color?
Yes.
Pink
Oh,
in
yeah.
color.
The stock. It's stock.
Yeah, and she drives in a
Yeah.
pink monster truck. I mean, she's one tattooed lady. And when she's on her drugs back before she got her life back in Christ, she told me a time that she bucketed out where her basement got backed up with sewage, and her job was to bucket out that basement for $50 so she could buy more dope. So she had a story to tell. But she's from Dan's congregation, and she's one of these gals that went from a dope to bailing out basements full of sewer water, and still packing AK-47. She is a nurse there in Iowa. She served on our work teams. You remember her, Liz? Or is she on a different work team? I don't know.
No.
Yeah, this is Sathry. He's a pharmacist. He says, I'll count pills, but I'd rather do electrical work and other things. And so he did all the wiring, Steve. You would have enjoyed that, but he did all the wiring of that microtube, put in some ceiling fans and some lighting and some other. And he's chilling out with these guys. These are two of the main guys that headed up the work team there. No ladder. When this boy, he for some reason did not need a ladder. And we're bucketing up the concrete, and you bucket up a half a bucket at a time, is what you do. This was the building as we're progressing. We added the auditorium, like 1/3 more to the auditorium to expand its capacity. And this was the progress on. And this was the ceiling we finally put in. It was raining that whole time. And from a construction standpoint, I had a $29 38 reversible drill I got down at the tool place down here, what's the name of that tool place down here? Harbor Freight, one of those cheap drills. And it had a 100-foot extension cord. And these construction guys who are full-time construction guys, they've got these $350, $450 automatic, drill pack and all that other stuff. But it was raining, and they fried out 3 of their 4 power packs on their drills. So if you don't have batteries that are all fried out, and no hardware store to run down and get another power pack, you only have 1 power pack, and they would drill for, drive screw for about an hour, and then you had to put it back on the charger again, and then it was only 1 power pack. So while that one was on charge, guess whose $29 drill with a reversible was putting that roof on? So they laughed at my equipment. Rich, can you get out your drill? I'm not the guy, but Rich, can you get out your drill? And we carried on. And this became the auditorium, and downstairs was the fellowship hall. This is up on the roof. We replaced 2/3 of the roof on the entire side. And this is what we're doing up there as far as, and you got to run these big long screws, yea long, drill through the corrugated with the wood shim underneath to keep it from buckling. This is me with my famous steps. It's now concrete. This is the tile. We were going in through the tiling, and we thought we could do this, but on this tile, Morty, they elevated the floor this far to put the tile in. I don't know why they had it. They always have these step-ups. They always have an inch step-up, and I don't know why they do an inch step-up. It's just either poor plan. Nothing's on the level. There's always got to be one section, and then another section, and another section. Each has got to have about 1 inch or 2 inch or 6 inch step-up. Just so people can trip and fall. Everything you don't want to do in a building, but that's the way they did it. But this was the tile, and then later on these windows were replaced with permanent windows, and this was some of the lighting and the electrical that Joe Sathry was putting in, and they finished up putting the fans in this week. Now, my wife was teaching these girls how to wash in the Jamaica way. And this is just all part of, and 4 girls could not keep up with her.
That's right.
Seriously, 4 girls could not keep up with her, but she was teaching her how to do wash with a scrub board. And one lady says, "Oh, that's so modern. Can you leave that scrub board with me because I do washings?" They used a cement block and a scrub brush, and that's how they did. The scrub board was nice. So she left them a scrub board. And but finally, after 15 years of scrub boarding, we finally put in a washing machine up there in our room, up in our staff room. So we got to open the window to run our drain, you know, and hook up the faucet, you know, because it comes up outside the building, and none of that stuff's internal. So you got to slide the window open and hook up your washer, but at least that sure beats what we've been doing.
That's it.
Because for a long time, after you have a work team of 27 people and all the sheets, and they all go home, we got 27 sets of sheets so we've got to wash because school's starting up the very 2 days later. And I had Tracy Marks, president of Lincoln, or from Kentucky Christian. He said, "What's our job description?" I says, "Well, today me and you are going to be doing washing. Wife's doing shopping." So she washed and re-rinsed and hung, and we also had Kennedy join us on that. Now we got the wash machine. It's made a big difference. This is the work team that we had there. This is yours truly. This is Dr. Sathry. She's a medical doctor from Arizona. This is Jonah, wife to Dan. And this is Jeff. He's a registered nurse. And his wife, Johnny. I think this is Johnny back in here. But that's part of the crew. And this is the exhausted crew as we're going along. After a week, a lot of these kids came from the West Coast. Some came out of Denver. Some came out of Washington. And we've had a Washington State group and a Washington D.C. group. And the Washington D.C. group was a predominantly black church, and the Washington State group was a predominantly white church. And so we had the two Washingtons, Washington State and Washington D.C. come together and work there in that particular. And this is a typical work team. This is kind of like what Sandy's working with in this particular setting. With this gang of feeding this crew and keeping thing. And this is a typical summer, every summer for the last 19, well, not really the last 19 years, but the last, I'm going to say 10 or 12 years or 15 years or whatever, that it just keeps growing and growing and growing. We used to have 7 and 8, and we've had as high as 80 people, not one time, but 80 people during each season. And this year we have 50 people in this season. This was a property in, where was this, in Bog Walk, that was promised by a Lakeland lady. The family's fighting over it. The family, one of the guys owns a bar, and they say the family in the States, the family in England have no right to this property. And so they've got the thing in court, and the lady's going to give us an acre to build a church. And she says, go ahead and start building, and you do not build on property you don't have a title to in Jamaica. Because what will happen, and this is what happened with one of our United States missions, they built $1 million school and says, okay, that property belongs to me, it don't belong to you. Or thank you for building this nice building on my property, Sis's property is the one next door. They play that game all the time, so you never build unless you have title. And then since then, we've got clear title of 5 acres of farmland given to us by Heather Ramkisoon. And that property, we've not seen it. We thought we saw it. It's 2 miles away, apparently, from that chicken coop property that is, but it's similar to this, rolling hill and woods and all that other stuff. And we're going to take a look at it here in the next couple of weeks. Now, they're building the Chinese build a new toll road right through that area, which means it's going to open that whole area. We may build right next to the Mineral Heights property. And the guy said he sold the property. My wife had lunch with Roger Scott, who's a friend of the owner of the property. Said, "Oh, that deal fell through." So we may still be buying that property there. We've got the down payment for it right now. We've got about $18,000, $19,000 down payment right on hand right now to put a down payment on that property. But we also own 5 acres that will sell for $35,000 to build a 2-story, 2,800, 1-floor, 5,600 square foot facility. Yeah, 28 or 26, 28, about 5,600 square foot facility. That's a pretty good sized building that my wife wants to see built down in Jamaica now that we're retired. This is what that property looks in Kitsentown and also Bog Walk. This is just to give you the idea of the sugar cane in the foreground, but there's rolling hill and brush. This is how we end the group up here. We always go to the Pelican, and this is where we usually end our doings. This gal here is actually Beth Dill. And my wife tried to get a vacation Bible school over there at Grove Park and Legacy several times, and oh no, we don't do that. So she took Beth Dill down to Jamaica, showed her how to do vacation Bible school. She didn't get permission. She just went back to Legacy and opened up and then did a vacation. She was head of youth anyway. She didn't get permission. She just did it. and so, you know, my wife got vetoed, but Beth, she just ran the thing, you know, and they had a good vacation Bible school. Right now, our vacation Bible schools were running, had 83 in Mitchelltown, a little congregation of about 35 people. They had 83 kids, which was a record. And they started a youth, and the kids demanded, we want a youth group, we want a youth group. So about 17, 20 young people have been coming on a Friday night youth group, and they baptized 2 or 3 of these kids since, you know, last summer. And we're talking about building a permanent classroom, so the kids have a classroom instead of a little building. Because their building is about the size of our building. The Mitchelltown's about the size of this auditorium, and they'll jam 50 people in there. But this is the pelican, the famous pelican. I'll tell you a little bit of story about Jeff. Interesting thing about Jeff, he was a weightlifter. He could bench press huge amounts. He would drink 2 liters of moonshine. You know how moonshine, that stuff's like vodka. He'd drink 2 liters of moonshine every day. Then you go out and party. And then he'd go out to work his nursing job, and he made about $170,000 a year as these instructor nurses. But this is what he did until he woke up one day and a demon came face to face and says, "You're mine," scared him half to death. And he sobered up after his experience, and he's been walking the straight and narrow ever since. But he's another tattoo guy, but he's a neat guy. He's a registered nurse. This was over here at Top Hill, Clevin Dixon. He was one of our graduate students from the college. He came to Florida Christian College, graduated there with his degree in counseling, and now he is a chaplain to over 1,000 police officers in Kingston. And he also pastors the Top Hill Church of Christ. And Top Hill is the town of Colin Powell. That's where his folks are from, that particular area. We're not going to go into the rest of the story. We're going to go into youth. We're going to go into vacation Bible school. We're going to go into our medical teams. You'll see Liz and Dan. But this will be continued next time as we continue on in our particular discussion of, or at least an update on what is happening with Jamaica.